It's Spacey in chat says, do you think it's possible Vitality disbands? Honestly, that's a really good question. Let's talk about it. Spacey in chat asked me if I think Vitality is going to disband. I think it's a really good conversation piece, and it's something I've actually been thinking about for about a week now. We talked about this briefly last week on stream, twitch.tv/Lawler. Come hang out with us. We have conversations like this, and I think this is one worth elaborating on because of Vitality's current hit and miss. I guess I never miss. I forget the name of the song. Either way, Vitality's been in a really weird position, I think you can say, even since the beginning of this season. Taking a look back at Vitality's results recently, they started off the beginning of the year in Fall Split with a really rough performance. Like the bare minimum 40 points main event, they got out, immediately turned around, took second place, and then averaged middle of the pack. You look at the Fall Split Major in Sweden, and they didn't make it out of groups. They went to the 5th and final round against NRG, didn't bounce back, looked kind of underperforming. We then jump into Winter Regionals, and they look okay, I guess. Not the worst, I would say, but ultimately not living up to the Vitality name. And for a lot of people that are watching this and don't necessarily know what I'm talking about for the Vitality name, I mean, the easiest thing you can do is pull up their Liquipedia page and just point at it. And I'm gonna do exactly that. Like, that's the Vitality name. It's a lot of wins, and if not wins, very close. Is that because of KDOP? Is that because of Vitality? Some may say it's the same thing. The biggest thing to take away is one of like 2 or 3 things, I would say. Number one, KDOP, for the first time since Season 3, did not make a grand final at an RLCS LAN. And please understand the qualification for that. Obviously, we had the RLCS World Championships. That is still a possibility for Vitality to do, but in a RLCS sanctioned LAN event, like KDOP has made every grand final. The Fall Split, he did not. Now, you can still make a qualifier so it's true and say he hasn't made the World Championship, but again, we won't know how that's playing out. But based upon the trend that Vitality is on, I don't know if they're going to make the World Championship as an automatic bid. I don't know if they're going to be a top 4 representation for their region. I really don't. And this has gotten me thinking about just Vitality as a general. This could be what I deem, we're getting into this end of an era where some of these long, prolific rosters, duos, etc. are falling apart. Gimmick and Torment no longer. You're seeing a lot of these transitions into that next phase. And I think Vitality may also be one of those teams. KDOP obviously made some changes, but eventually ended up with this team quite a while ago. Exactly was back in 2019? He joined January 13th, 2019, just 13 days ago, 3 years ago. 19 to 20, 20 to 21, 21, 22. Yeah, so 3 years ago, 13 days ago, is when KDOP joined Vitality. 3 years is a pretty long time with one roster. The difference really came when they brought in Scrubkilla and then they brought in Alpha. So those have been the 2 roster changes that have made up Vitality. Fairy Peak, KDOP, Scrub, and Alpha have been the changes that we've seen since KDOP came in. And it presents the question of, with this team, do we think they have the chance to get better? And do we think that they can get back to the form that we expect them to be? And based upon recent results, there is a lot of concern for that. I think the Fall Split result is more so due to the fact that, yes, this is the first time we're seeing this team on LAN. A lot of us were excited about that. A lot of us had expectations of them doing well. But Fairy Peak, unfortunately, was fairly sick, dealing with food poisoning and the things he was going on. Even with that, online results have not been that great. They still, with boot camps, have had a boot camp buff, but it hasn't been the most amazing. Even with everything all said and done, right now Vitality is sitting 5th overall in the points and in the standings. They're behind by a decent amount, just shy of 300 at 290. And again, one good result can make that up. A second place performance, they're back in the conversation of top 5. The question here is with what we saw Team Liquid actually do, ironically enough. Team Liquid prepared for the future. Team Liquid decided, you know what? Rather than rebuild around this situation, we are going to completely start anew. And I think that's kind of a similar situation to Vitality. They have essentially three options. They can take their most prolific player in Alpha and rebuild a team around Alpha. They can completely say, Alpha, you are the best player on this team, results-wise. You've been putting us in your backpack. What do you want? We are going to spend a boatload of money to retain you, and we're going to keep you here. And that is how we are going to continue to build a team. That's option number one. We rebuild around Alpha. The second option is you retain your points, which is what I think they would do. And they keep 2/3 of that roster and presents then two questions. Is it Alpha and Fairy, or is it Alpha and KDOP? And here's arguments for both. As an organization in the RLCS, at the end of the day, it is a business. And as a business, you're trying to make money. And I don't know if anybody can argue against this, but Fairy doesn't really have the platform that KDOP does. You could also argue that I don't know any other Rocket League streamer that has the platform that KDOP does. In just sheer numbers, size, whatever, KDOP has transcended Rocket League streaming. KDOP is now a French streamer. He is no longer a Rocket League streamer. You can go look at the numbers, the demographics, all the kind of stats that come with it. He is closer to being a French streamer than he is a Rocket League streamer based upon viewership and where it comes. KDOP can hop on stream right now and pull anywhere from 5 to 10K viewers concurrent. And that value to a team is extremely important. That value to a team, you could say, even outweighs the results of their performances in events. Like KDOP's value is off the charts, which then provides this like option 3B, which means they do get rid of KDOP and KDOP just becomes a Vitality content creator. That is definitely a possibility. It just depends on what KDOP wants to do. He loves to compete. He's a true competitor. He loves being able to do that, but maybe he's at the point where he realizes that, you know what? Finding another team, rebuilding, starting this new era with another team for the third time. Do I really want to do that? So those are the two options. I'll tell you where I think my brain is going. I think right now, meta, what makes a team successful, the things that are really important, two extremely mechanically talented players that can kind of do it all, and one person to support that. And I think more than anybody on the team, Fairy Peak is a phenomenal person to have supporting you. We've seen him, even though he can do significantly more, has showcased that as a solid backbone, as a third player to help facilitate, to kind of dish passes, be in the right position. Fairy Peak is still one of the best, in my opinion. I do still firmly believe that Fairy Peak is a great positional player, and he can get the job done. He still has the mechanics to do more if needed, and that may become a problem in the future. But I do think that Fairy still is very talented on the roster. Statistically, he is the worst on the team right now. I'm pretty sure. If you're just looking at pure stats, but that also, I think, is due to the fact that the team isn't meshing the way it's supposed to. Fairy Peak stats go up when the team does better. Same with everybody else. He is very reliant on his teammates to be successful because of the position he plays on the team. I can pull replay analysis and showcase, like, yes, this is Fairy Peak setting something up and doing his job, but the shots aren't being scored. The person who's supposed to be there isn't. They got bumped. You know, whatever. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. But to me, Fairy Peak is very reliant on success shown in stats based upon how well his teammates do. Alpha can kind of do it on his own, etc. So I kind of look at how this is played out, and I do think if you pair Fairy and Alpha with a new up-and-comer, most likely French, you could see some results. And it got me thinking, okay, which French players are really awesome to pull? The answer is all of them, if I'm being completely honest. You can basically talk about...
Where is my suck a butt emote?
Twitch got rid of it. They can suck a butt. Twitch can suck a butt, Flair. That's what happened. They got rid of it. But I'm looking at a bunch of like solo French players that would be solid. Most recently, Team Queso popped off. Team Queso looked absolutely incredible. If Team Queso doesn't continue to have success, I could 100% seeing Vitality try and poach Vatira. Why not? I could 1000% see that being a thing. Why not? Going down this list, there's a bunch of unique players in up and coming that have potential to kind of step up. You get players like Zen and stuff, who currently is technically banned, I'm pretty sure. I think Zen, because he played underage, his ban doesn't start until he becomes eligible, and then it goes for a year after that. So that may not be a good option initially, but Seiko, maybe. You could, and I don't think Endpoint would ever let him go, but you kind of see the track of mind I'm on. Vitality has a lot of potential to say, hey, we got a spot open. And you get to play with Alpha and Fairy Peak, and you know we're going to support you, and you know we're going to be successful, because that's what we expect. You could see players from rosters that are showing the results, like the Vatiras, the Seikos, etc. But you can also go look at like players from Williams Resolve, Prime, Redocin, Sazin. Like any of those players have the potential to move up. But Zen, I think, is a lot of the up-and-comer that a lot of people are talking about. But it kind of leads you to believe like what could be and if it's going to happen. The other option, like I said, is that they just rebuild around Alpha altogether. Or maybe Alpha goes somewhere else, and then they are with Fairy Peak and K-Dop still, and they've got to find a new third. Will they find success? I don't know, but I do feel very strongly that Vitality in the near future is probably going to be making a change. I think obviously this split in particular is make or break for Vitality. If Vitality doesn't start showing some top 4 results, you can probably kiss this roster goodbye, which is really crazy to think about because of how long they've been together. It's kind of scary. I mean, you just saw what happened in North America with all those top prolific teams making changes, with Atomic leaving Envy, which everybody was surprised by. You're seeing Sipical make the jump over to FaZe. Like, there's some big name teams with their star players going elsewhere. Now, whether that will still happen in Europe or not, I don't know. I really don't. Do I think Vitality is going to possibly make a change? I do. I really do. I do think that Vitality is going to see this end of the era that it has been, this prolific team with some really iconic names, and it could lead to a bunch of different facets. It could lead to either K-Dop deciding to retire and go full-time content creation because he clearly has a home there. You could see him find a new team because he wants to continue to compete, most definitely. You could see a different iteration. You could see Alpha possibly going out. Like, there's a lot of different factors that go into this conversation, and a lot of it is going to be termed on availability, who else is looking, tryouts, buyouts, like how much money are these people going to be asking for, and if Vitality is willing to go and spend the money now that they're no longer partnered with Renault and they're just Team Vitality. Do they still have as deep of pockets so they can go and make a pickup and get a AAA talent like a Seiko or, you know, one of these young up-and-comers? Because you're going to see the same thing with Zen and these other players coming in, is they're going to be sought after. I mean, Team Liquid made the smart move and picked up Atao and Oski right away, but these are things that can definitely happen. Maybe they go back to speaking English. I don't know. On paper, I look at, like, my brain on paper says Vatira, Alpha, Fairy Peak. I don't want to play that. I want nothing to do with that roster. Keep them on the other side of the bracket. I don't want to deal with that. There's no way. I think right now, looking at Vitality, they are in trouble. And it's crazy to see, because I remember every single time being on desk and you see Vitality in the bracket, I'm just like, I feel bad for everybody else that has to go into that situation. And while doing, and the reason this thought originally came into play was because while I was doing my tier list, I had to look internally and say, Vitality and K-Corp, man, they've got some prolific names on it, but am I just continuing to give them a bias and a nod because of that? And when I looked back at Vitality, I'm like, you know what? I've got to knock them down a peg. I still think they have top 8 potential just because of the sheer amount of talent on their roster, but realistically, they haven't given me a reason to feel confident about them in a long time. That's what, over the course of 5 months, 6 months, that's eternity. I mean, that's a whole season in the old days of Rocket League. To not be on, to be confident in a team for an entire season is of some concern. So they've still got a little bit of time to fix it. They've still got a little bit of time to kind of wrap things up, but I'm curious what you guys think. For anybody watching on YouTube, and if you've made it this far, I greatly appreciate it. Consider giving the video a like if you do like this content. If you've made it this far, you probably do, so you should probably just do that. And while you're there, if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This is some of the kind of content that I want to make. We're going to pair this eventually with a lot of B-roll content and a lot of visual and like analysis breakdown and stuff like that once we get a little bit more time to do editing and stuff. But these are the types of conversations that I want to have on this channel. I think these things are really important for the growth of the scene and bringing in a wider audience to understand the concept of what is going on. Because as Rocket League, in my opinion, continues to grow and get into the golden years of what I think it's going to be, I think these are the kind of educational and entertaining conversations I think I want to do. So with that said, as always, if you guys enjoy the content, thumbs up, subscribe, notifications. If you guys would like to express your own thoughts and opinions or things that you think could happen, maybe certain roster iterations you think I haven't thought of, let me know in the comments down below. But with that said, Greatly appreciate you taking the time to watch the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.